Chilling in the summertime and somehow missed the sunset. Then it all went fuzzy, got the static in my headset.
Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. And while we wait for more people to join, please type in the chat where you are from, as well as if you are a college student, high school student, or parent who's joining us today. Also, happy Asian Heritage Month. Today is the first day of May, so it's great that we get to celebrate this day together. So please feel welcome to type in the chat what your favorite Chinese dish is. I can get you guys started. My favorite Chinese dish is Sichuan hot pot. In Chinese, it's ma la huo guo. I see some things are coming in the chat. Wow, New Jersey. That's quite a ways away from where I am. I'm in the Bay Area. Wow, it's nice to see some high school students here. I'm also a high school student, so that's really cool. It's also nice to see a lot of parents here as well. Yeah, I bet a lot of parents here are probably parents of high schoolers. If you guys want to say what grade your high schoolers are in, that would also be really cool too. Yes, I also really like tofu as well. Okay, so I want to take this time to thank a couple of the organizations who supported this event. So a big thank you to UCA, also known as the United Chinese Americans, and also the PCE Club, also known as the Parents and Children Education Club. Now I know the PCE Club wanted to make a brief introduction, so would you like to do that now?
My computer is still updating, but I can quickly talk about our organization. Thank you so much thank you, Kathy, for hosting the event, and also thank you, Elise and Lowhi, for coming and sharing your experience with us. We really appreciate the opportunity to hear from our younger generation, because a lot of times, as parents, we struggle to support, particularly our teenagers. We have our best intentions, but often instead of supporting, we seem to be imposing our wishes or our ideas on our teenagers, and it's sad for both, the teenager who needs the support and for parents who are often confused. And what PCE has been doing for the last 18 years is trying to get parents together so that we can have the support from each other. First of all, we learn, from our own lessons learned, but also we've been doing monthly seminars just to really understand child development and also understand the difficult realities and the teenagers face, so that because many of us are from China and we don't have the experience of growing up here, number one, and number two, being the immigrant is very different from the second generation growing up here. So we identify with different issues, and it is just hard. It's almost a cross-cultural dialogue that we're learning here. So fortunately, in New Jersey, some parents started this club and we were able to come together monthly, and also annually we have a parenting conference where we invite nationally known or internationally known educational experts or psychologists, and they really help us, So we feel very fortunate that we're able to recently start cooperating with Guigu Baijiatan as the Silicon Valley Forum. And this is a great opportunity for us as well. Thank you so much.
Yes, I think it's really great what your organization is doing, because I feel that parents and children, especially Chinese American parents and children, not only have to face a generational gap, but they also have this sort of like cultural gap as well. So I think it's really great that you guys are acknowledging that and trying to make a move towards bridging that gap.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Moving forward. Oh, by the way, for people who just joined, I know a bunch of people just joined us just now. Please type in the chat if you're a parent, high school student, college student, also where you're from. And since it's Asian Heritage Month, the first day of Asian Heritage Month, please type in your favorite Chinese dish as well. So continuing on to the other organizations I would like to thank today, I would also like to thank Silicon Valley Forum 100. Many of you might know this organization by its Chinese name, 硅谷百家谈. And finally, I want to thank ROX Global, also known as the Global Results-Oriented Consulting Services, who helps Chinese Americans to succeed in their careers. I noticed that we have a lot of parents here today. That is really great. I just want you guys to know that this first session is probably going to be in all English, and it's more for the people who are really interested in pursuing their passions and stuff like that. And then the second session will be more about in Chinese and more about the parents and bridging that gap that PCE is working on. I'm honored to be interviewing Leo Xia, or Lowhi, who is our special guest here with us today. Before I introduce him, I just know that all of you are wondering who I am. It may surprise you to know that I am a proud Chinese American. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself. My name is Elise. I'm sure you guys have seen that on the brochure, and I'm currently a high school student in Silicon Valley. I'm very passionate about many of the arts, and I also play a lot of sports. So parents and students alike, type in the chat what kind of art you're interested in or what sports you play. I also noticed that a lot of parents have their high schoolers or college students with them. If you guys would like, it would probably be better for them to be the ones monitoring the chat during the first portion of our interview, just so that they can really ask the questions that are burning in their minds. Dance. Yeah, I used to do dance too for quite some time as well. Wow, disc throwing. Is that like discus or frisbee? Because I know that a lot of colleges have ultimate frisbee, but then there's also shot put, and then there's also discus, which are both track and field events. Okay, well, continuing. You might be thinking that there's so many different things I've asked of you to put in the chat, and you might have thought that you would just be here to listen and that you wouldn't really be typing in the chat so much. But I want this interview to be very interactive. I want you guys to be super comfortable with typing in the chat all of your interests so that we can kind of get to know you as well. It's really good to really get to know everyone on a call. And I think it's more fun this way and easier for you guys to participate, not only now, but later on in the event. So let's get started on the event. Let's introduce our guest, Lowhi, who is an alternative R&B and lo-fi artist based in Los Angeles. He was born in the Bay Area near San Francisco, and he grew up in Beijing when he was 6. As a musician, he sings and raps in both English and Mandarin. His work has also been seen on television in Wu Assassins on Netflix, as well as Warrior on HBO Max, and he's also been seen on various national commercials for companies such as Panda Express and Pigeon. Lowhi is also a creativity coach, helping people to get out of their heads and into their hearts so their gifts can be shared with the world. As most of you know, we're here today to look at Lowhi's experience as an artist in LA and also to hear his insights for people interested in creative careers. We're also here to be analyzing the generation gaps between parents and children and also looking at that from both perspectives. Okay, now let's get started, everyone. I want you guys to know that this is an exciting time for Leo. He's currently undergoing a major transition in his life from working on YouTube to becoming a full-time artist. So Lowhi, would you like to tell us a little bit more about that transition?
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Lowhi. Thank you, Elise, for the generous introduction. 大家好，我的名字是Lowhi。这个第一部分我会主要说英文，跟孩子说，还有第二部分我们就说中文吧。But for now, we're speaking English, and yeah, it's an exciting time for me because it's been a roller coaster. I'm 26 now, just to give everyone a preference. So I've been out of college as long as I was in college, being an adult, so to speak, and working a full-time job at the moment. But since college ended, it's been a journey of trying to do music full-time, exploring all those possibilities, and then wanting to really be able to support myself financially as well. So getting a job while putting all my other time into music, and now on the flip side, looking to return to the full-time. So we can get into the details of that later as well.
Okay, yeah. So let's get started on how you kind of got into this career. So in college, I understand that you got an engineering degree. So what made you choose an engineering degree in college?
Yeah, I remember. So I went to an international school in Beijing from all the way from first grade till I graduated in high school. And instead of the AP that there is in the States, we had something called the IB program. And what we do is choose 3 higher level courses and 3 standard level courses. And my 3 were physics, music, and econ as the things I was just most interested at the moment. And I remember during high school thinking, I don't know if I want to study music. It seems like a lot of pressure to me to like use that degree and make that into a career. So I ended up choosing econ because at the moment I didn't think I wanted to be an engineer either. So I went to the econ program at USC, and I was there for a year and really didn't like it, to be honest. And I transitioned to the engineering school, and it actually wasn't my parents recommending me to do that, even though my dad's an engineer. And hi dad in the room. But I actually chose it for myself because I think it was this unconscious decision of I want to make the most out of my degree and make the most out of the university's resources, so to speak, get the most bang for my buck. So I chose mechanical engineering first, and then I transitioned into industrial engineering, industrial systems engineering. So that's the degree I graduated with. And I was taking all these classes with obviously my class. And I remember junior year when everyone else was interning for, Pepsi, all these different companies that have really great positions and career starters for engineers. And I remember thinking, I don't want to work for any of these companies. These do not interest me at all. So my junior summer in college, I actually went to intern for an independent rapper. And it was an unpaid internship, got food paid for me every now and then, but it was really valuable because I got to help him book a national tour for him. I got to help him run a Kickstarter, and I eventually ran a few Kickstarters myself. So that experience directly translated into that. And I helped him create and produce shows, like his album release show in LA down at the Pico Union, if anyone's familiar with LA. But yeah, that's where the path really diverged, and I was really set on being in the industry, whether it was interning for a record label, which I did down the line, but just really wanting to be a part of entertainment. That's how it started.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because a lot of students, I know I am, when I was looking at having perhaps an artist career, I was thinking about, well, should I really be doing an artist major when I'm in college? Because we don't know how many opportunities there could necessarily be. A lot of people are concerned about financial stability. So it's really interesting to see an artist such as yourself choose to be in an engineering program and to actually make a career out of that as well. So do you want to talk a little bit about your day-to-day, basically working at YouTube, and how you kind of balance YouTube with your career as an artist as well?
Yeah, so what I do for my day job is I work in a company that does copyright work on YouTube for big clients such as an SME, a Sony Music, an Ultra Music, and a lot of film verticals such as MGM, Miramax, for example, and we help make sure their content isn't being pirated on YouTube. So that's the day job work I do, and yeah, it's been quite the journey figuring out how do I balance doing my day job work and also doing it well, not just sliding by, but also making sure I'm doing it in excellence to the best of my ability, and also making sure I have the energy and the willingness to also pursue and create an entire other business effectively on the side, you know, music as a business, because I'm really intent on making my music career something that can support me financially as well, which takes a lot of focus, a lot of intention, a lot of discipline, and a lot of creativity, obviously. So something I want to share with everyone is thinking about which hours of the day are best for what. So I realized for myself, for example, that some of my work for my day job is flexible. For example, I can do more in the afternoon and choose not to work in the morning if I wanted to. So I realized, you know, this morning time is really valuable for me. I just got up, I'm focused. That's when I can dream the best, or, you know, focus on a vision of the future the best. So what I did was I stopped doing my day job work in the morning. I just do more in the afternoon, and I made sure those valuable morning daytime hours, just as I woke up, that I was putting into what I really truly cared about, like what I'm creating in my life, my future career, how my business can look like, where I can get revenue music wise. So that can look different for everyone. I know artists that like doing maybe their day job, daytime hustle in the morning, and keeping nighttime really for the creativity and all that kind of work. But I found for myself, if I do my day job throughout the entire day without touching anything music related, once it gets to nighttime, I just want to be lazy and I just want to relax. So just figuring out how to structure my life in a way that supported me and what I actually wanted to create and what was actually a priority to me was really important. And I'm also conscious that most day jobs aren't as flexible as that. So, but yeah, I think just thinking about that beforehand, before signing into a specific kind of job, many friends, myself included, you know, I worked in a restaurant 2 years ago, and I worked the night shift there. So it was like an opposite lifestyle. So yeah, I say for high schoolers, thinking ahead, like really envisioning what your ideal day would look like your best day, that everything goes right and amazing, and you're doing what you want to do and what you're passionate about. What does that day look like? And then looking for jobs that suit that, planning your day around that, and yeah, having a clear vision of that, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think it's really nice that you talk about structure in your life, because I feel like a lot of people don't really think about that when they're thinking long term. They're more so just thinking really, really big picture, like, oh, what kind of career am I going to do? What are the major problems of that? What are the major positive points of that, like money and such and such? I think it's really good to think about what exactly your day-to-day is going to be looking like, right? Because maybe you will be able to have a job that has flexible hours, such as your career as well. And I guess it's going to lead me to the next question, which is more about how you kind of keep those valuable hours of being an artist, how you kind of like keep your inspiration during those times as well. So I know that a lot of artists, such as myself, you go through these periods of like massive growth where you're doing a bunch of art, you're, you know, really passionate about everything, and then all of a sudden it just stops. It's just completely plateaus. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you do to keep yourself motivated?
Yeah, this is a great question, because I've had experiences on both sides of that spectrum. So one side of the spectrum being, oh my God, I'm so inspired all the time. I can't even keep up with everything that I'm wanting to create. Just so many ideas. And the opposite end, which is, I kind of want to work on something, but something's not turning. Something's not flowing. Something feels stuck, either in my heart, in my head, you know, in my playing or anything like that. So I'd say high school and college was just a really inspirational time for me, just because I was always experiencing something new. I was always meeting new people, especially in college. I was on a dance team in college as well. So I was surrounded by people who were dancers and graphic designers, dancers and visual artists, dancers and singers and rappers. So I was constantly receiving new information. So it was really easy during that time for me to write. So my first EP, which you can listen to on Spotify if you want, all those songs, I'd say all of them were written like the whole song in one go, like in an hour or two. Had an idea, pick up the guitar, write the whole song, versus hooks, bridges, everything. And that's something I got used to. But when I graduated college, that was a really tough transition, because that's when graduated, walked across, got my degree, and it felt like reality set in of, oh, I'm a full-time artist now. Now I got to work harder, and creativity has to be harder. So I think during that time, I tried to focus too much on just creating music versus how can I live life in such a way that I'm so fulfilled and so inspired that I'm naturally just having new experiences, maybe hang out with friends more or watching movies. But I kind of went into isolation. And yeah, during that time, that's when my mom's mom, my Lala, had passed. And I wanted to write an album about what she meant to me. She was the one that taught me Mandarin, mostly in Beijing growing up. Like she'd come out from the middle of the city to the suburbs where we were living. And yeah, she would teach me Chinese. She's really the main reason that my Mandarin is even semi-fluent at the moment. So I was really inspired by that and wanted to just pay homage to her. And I remember during that time, it was really difficult to write. I'm really proud of that album that eventually came out from that. But unlike college where, boom, idea, write, pick up guitar, go, hour or two, done. Everything's there. Melody, words are all there. During that time, every song I had to revisit, I think 4 or 5 times. Like every sit down, I'd only write even like 2 lines or a verse or something. It just felt like pulling teeth. It was really, really, really painful. And yeah, I've realized since that, oh man, there was like a lot going on within me spiritually, mentally, that were really tough. And I had to address that before I could be fully inspired again, just because there was that trauma and blockage from my grandma passing and not fully grieving that. So yeah. I forget what the question was to be honest, but yeah.
It was basically, how do you keep yourself motivated to keep doing what you're doing? So during tough times, such as when your grandma passed, like how were you able to pick yourself back up and keep going?
Yeah, and I'll speak into like how I create now too, just to create a contrast. Mm-hmm. For me personally, as an artist, so those songs I was talking about, I try to write them alone. Always sitting by myself with the guitar, trying to write them. Versus now, what I understand about myself, and I think other artists too, is that even just being around people can help that inspiration a lot. Even if it's just like, hey, let me catch up with a friend and just talk about life and connect with each other. That's a really helpful thing. And for me, I realize I write better now when people are with me, even with someone just sitting there. And most in particular, my music producer, I've worked with him for years, but it'd be inconsistent because I would need to have written a song to then approach him. But now how I've transformed my relationship with him is like, hey, Justin, I'm really committed to this music thing. And I want to be disciplined. I want to create structure in my creative life. So I meet with him every week now. So every Monday night, go over to his place in North Hollywood, sit down, talk about where we're both at in life, catch up a little bit. So obviously we're friends too. And then we start listening to some music. I show him stuff that I've been listening to. He shows me stuff he's been listening to. And this is where it gets really detailed, right? Like, oh, I liked how that ukulele sounded with the high end cutoff, or like that 808 really works with that instrument for some reason. And then I'll start telling him, hey, these are the pieces I want from this and that. Let's create that. So then ideas are able to flow. And I realize I thrive in situations where I can talk to people and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And to get that really quick iterative, like, okay, I feel that, let's go more in that direction. Or no, I'm not feeling that. Okay, cool, let's move on to the next option. It's like a decision tree that branches out and moves very, very quickly. And I find it harder to do that when I'm by myself. But if I'm with like one or two people that I really trust, where I really trust their creative instinct, and their opinions, it makes it a lot faster. And there's like a creative flow state that happens, where it feels like I'm not so much creating or writing from my mind, but it's just like there's something in the universe that's already there, and I'm still enough to see it and then transfer it and transmute it into a song. So I think for any artist, figuring out how you best get to a flow state is really important. Because I know for me, when I'm in flow state, that's when I enjoy creating the most versus pulling teeth and trying to write a line or two at a time.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. I think a key word that you really kept bringing up was people. So basically talking to people, finding people who are going to be able to help you and motivate you to get into that flow state. That's really important. So would you like to talk a little bit more about how you interact with people, your people skills, how you've developed that skill over time?
Yeah, I feel really grateful to my parents at this moment of time in my life, because I remember growing up and my parents, we'd always have these dinner parties with a bunch of other Chinese families, and have the parents table, have the kids table, and I really appreciate that now, because I saw how at that time it was just I was interacting with all sorts of different people. I remember in school, especially high school, it felt like I only hang out with people my grade. I had that feeling sometimes, like the other grades feel kind of inaccessible, other than in sports. But even just that time to just like talk with other kids, see what's going on, develop my people skills, one dinner party by one dinner party, learning what they're up to. And then it's like I see them in school, and then they're not a stranger, slowly building out my community like that. And yeah, seeing what works and doesn't work with people is really amazing. I think of this really specific memory of my dad bringing me to this dinner with a bunch of people he played golf with, and I was the only kid at that table, because my dad knew that I was really interested in music, and there was someone in his group that worked in that industry. So he just like plucked me from the house one day and was like, come to dinner with me. I'm going to sit you next to him and just talk to him, have fun, just go for it. I remember feeling scared to like, I don't know what to say to adults, but it was really experiences like that accumulate. And I learned how to talk to adults. I learned how to talk to people younger than me. And I learned eventually, especially coming back to America after Beijing, learning to talk to people of different races, different backgrounds, different religions, just learning to relate to people has been honestly the most important skill in this industry. I'd say anything on my bio or anything accolades wise, it's all been through someone that I met randomly or through someone's recommendation that we've been keeping in touch, or just developing a relationship with each other and developing a trust in each other. So yeah, I'd say that charisma and that ability to talk to people, especially in LA. I drive now, but I used to be in Ubers all the time, and that was the thing too. People ask me what I do. It's like, I do music. Oh, you know, can you play some of your music? And just sharing my music with random people, and to be brave about that. And even now on Instagram, there's some like people that follow me that I remember, like, oh, how did I meet you again? Oh, I met you because you were my Uber driver at one point. And sometimes Uber drivers, they're also in music or in some sort of other industry. So especially in an LA, in a Nashville, in a New York, where there's just a lot of people working in music because of the population. It's worth it to choose to engage with someone versus just being on my phone the entire time, because you never know.
Yeah, I would imagine that with any form of art, if you're going to be doing it as a career, you need to be able to at least somewhat talk to people, or as you might say, have a manager who is able to talk to people as well if you are unable to do so. I know a lot of my friends are on this call right now, and some things that they've told me is that they struggle with talking to people. Like, that's their main issue in the classroom and just in general. It's just really difficult for them to socialize. And that's why, even though they love expressing themselves, it's hard for them to show their work and really be proud of it. So I want to share like a similar story. I actually had a very similar background when I was a kid, where basically my mom would be, dragging me to all of these, dinner meetings with her business partners. She would be, taking me on all sorts of business trips, even when I was a really young kid. And something that I particularly remember was that we used to go to the airport, and she would not tell me where to go. She would give me the boarding pass, and she would say, okay, you're going to lead the way. I'm not going to say anything. And then I would just have to kind of, randomly go places and hope for the best. But that really helped me gather my people skills as well, because I would have to ask people where to go. I would need to be the one to order food, to tell the flight attendant where we were going. And yeah, I would totally agree with you that even if you're not in our career, it's super important to be able to talk to people or have people around you who can talk to people for you. It just feels a lot more helpful and generally pretty fulfilling as well, I would think.
Yeah, and just to encourage those friends as well. It's as with any skill, it's a muscle. So, I used to think, oh wow, that person is just naturally so good with people. They're just an extrovert, awesome person, and they can get along with anyone. But it just takes skill. And what I find that works is to just ask people questions about themselves. Especially beyond the, oh, where are you from? What do you do? It's like, what, having someone tell me what their job is, like, oh, do you like it? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And usually people are more open to listening to me when I listen to them first. So that's me walking into any people situation, but definitely also any networking situation is, how can I ask questions first? How can I show this person that I care? At least give them some time of my day and my presence, and be unattached if they give something back to me. Because I found the more I give, whether it be attention or time or energy or love to someone, I always get more back. So that's usually my focus, people wise.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a really good idea, to really focus on how to talk to people, not necessarily to talk more, but to just ask more meaningful questions so that they feel that you're very considerate of them as well. So we have a question in the chat, actually. So I'll just ask this really quick. Do you think the experience of studying in China helped your college experience? Do you see benefits or drawbacks from that?
I think it helped a lot. I think having been in LA for 8 years now, it's been really eye-opening to see how people think, because I think sometimes in America, people grew up in a city and just have been there the whole time, where I was lucky to be in Beijing, and also by going to an international school, meet people from a lot of different backgrounds. Like they're from a lot of different countries, speak a lot of different languages, have a lot of different traditional practices. It really opened my mind, and I felt like I got to start college just with a better cultural understanding of the world. So I think that perspective definitely helps us see the big picture. Sometimes, like, yeah, sometimes what we got going on in America seems like a lot, but there's just a whole world out there and a lot of different perspectives. Specifically for college, my school is a pretty competitive school, I'd say. So yeah, taking the IB program, the IB diploma program specifically, it prepped me really well for college. Schoolwork definitely didn't feel as difficult. But yeah, a lot of way more benefit to drawback. I can't even think of a clear drawback right now, to be honest. I'm really grateful and happy that I got to experience both cultures while I grew up.
So going more to about your high school and childhood experience, what really prompted you to be an artist in the first place? Do you want to talk a little bit about your experience in that?
Yeah, so I grew up playing piano and violin, like many Chinese kids, maybe some of you in the chat right now. But I was exposed to it, and I enjoyed it, but I always found it was very static, and it was very structured. So I played a lot of classical music, obviously, and stuck to the sheet music very, very closely. And I remember that getting to me after a while. I think at the time I stopped tutoring because I took those, I don't know if people are familiar with the ABRSM instrument exams. I think it's mainly in Europe and Asia, but took a bunch of those, really had to practice a lot to pass those, and remembering just feeling kind of unfulfilled even after I got the diploma, so to speak. And in 6th grade, I felt like that really changed because I took this enrichment class called Rock Band, and Mr. McCormick, I'll never forget him. He took a bunch of, I think it was like 20 middle schoolers that were interested in playing rock music, handed us a bunch of electric guitars, bass guitars, electric keyboards, drum sets, and taught us how to play stuff like Nirvana, and like AC/DC and stuff like that. And it just blew my mind because I was expecting to get some sort of sheet music to play keys on, because he put me on electric keyboard since I said I played piano. And he said, oh, like, yeah, those are the chords, which are boom, boom, boom. It's these notes, and it's going to switch to this chord, boom, 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 these notes. I was like, but how do you play it? Rhythm, like, what do you do? He was like, that's the beauty of rock music, man. You just play what your heart feels in the moment. And it was great because that attitude of teaching, it led to very chaotic music, but really good life lessons. Because if you imagine like 3 kids on electric keyboard playing different versions of the same chords, 3 other kids playing full drum sets, 4 other kids all with amps playing electric guitar. It was absolute chaos. But for me, that was the introduction into, whoa, there's a history of music, what music's been, classical, rock, baroque, all these different eras of music. Yes, and I can learn that and then implement like my own musical tastes, what I think sounds good, what I think is interesting, put my own life experience into it. That it's like an interactive thing, where before that, I think the way I was learning music, it really felt like you're just the student. Just learn from the teacher, just do exactly as the teacher says, and you'll be good. So I think that really opened my mind up to, whoa, creation can be a very interactive process. and I have a lot of agency over that process. And from there, started singing, started songwriting as well. First, just instrumentally on piano, and eventually messing around with lyrics as well. Wrote my first song in 8th grade. It's like a super cringy love song that none of you will ever hear. But yeah, that was the spark. It was just this idea that music can be really free. And I remember even when I took classes, I'd gravitate towards like the jazz songs. We play the jazz and blues songs, and obviously rock songs as well. But yeah, that seed grew into the possibility of creating different things.
Yeah, it really sounds like a lot of your experiences from talking to people and learning more about music are all from having like this sort of like open mindset. Would you say that kind of like having that kind of open mindset allowed you to experience a lot more and allowed you to kind of grow a lot more than you think you would have if you had a closed mindset?
Yeah, the open mindset was huge, and just being able to be willing to fail spectacularly at many times. Yeah, there's some songs I wrote. I remember, because usually for a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, it's like, oh well, this is the chord pattern I'm gonna use, like D A G A for example. And I remember one of the songs I wrote for my first album, it was just me on the guitar for like an hour, just noodling, like, okay, what if I move this finger up? How does that sound? Oh, that sounds good. What if I move it here? No, that doesn't sound good. What if I move both here? Ooh, that sounds good after this. And even to this day, I honestly couldn't tell you what the chord progression of that song is. I can play it, but I think that's an example of just, I remember at the time I was just so infatuated by music. I was just like, whoa, let me strip it down to the building blocks and see what works and what doesn't. I was really patient during that time as well, of being willing to just press that. It's a piano equivalent of just like sitting there poking keys, being like, okay, this sounds good, this doesn't sound good. Yeah, but I think that was really fun too, because it felt like I was discovering something new that no one else had ever discovered before, and that to me feels like the best part of creativity.
Yeah, definitely. I see another question here. It's kind of more about you're entering the entertainment industry. So is it difficult for Asians to enter the entertainment industry? Were there a lot of opportunities for you? And do you think there will be more opportunities or less opportunities in the future?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think it's the best time for Chinese Americans, especially, to enter the U.S. entertainment industry. Because I know for me personally, even in college, I'd done some work for TV and film, where these American TV film sync licensing companies, they're the ones responsible for getting songs for TV shows, for films, for commercials sometimes as well. And I've gotten a lot of work the past few years doing Mandarin vocals. Like they'll have an English song that they want translated, and I'd translate that song, and then I'd sing it for them. So for me, the turning point was really Crazy Rich Asians. If anyone's seen that movie, it was really it was a turning point in the entertainment industry, because it made people higher up in the music industry really notice, like, oh wow, we can tap into Asian culture, especially Chinese culture. There's so many Chinese people in the States. That's something we can tap into to generate profit for us. So what that looks like for me is getting more opportunities for commercial work, getting more opportunities for TV and film. Like, oh, we really want a Mandarin song to be the backdrop music for this action scene or this ending credit scene. So yeah, I'd say now is really the best time, because a lot of people have laid groundwork for Asian Americans to do this and not be questioned, if you know 88 Rising, the record label, they've done a lot of that groundwork to show Asians in hip hop, Asians in R&B. It's not a weird thing. It's not a weird thing anymore. Yeah, I'd say it's a really freeing time, especially for Chinese Americans, to get into it. And yeah, I don't feel that it's as much of a prohibitive factor. I think there's a lot of other factors that are just as, if not more important, especially one, just factually how good you are at your craft. If you're a singer, how unique is your voice? How well do you write? You know, do you speak multiple languages and you can help translate? Yeah, I think the conversation now for Chinese Americans in the arts is a lot less about, you know, are you not going to get opportunities because you're Chinese? And it's more so, can you utilize your cultural heritage and skill set in a way that's valuable to the current entertainment landscape, which honestly, right now I feel is really favorable to Chinese Americans in particular.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that you don't just need to focus on the face value of it. It's also just what's behind the scenes. Like, can you translate this? Can you translate that? I feel like that's a whole other side of it that not many people think about, especially in the music and entertainment industry. Sorry, I had something else I was going to say, but I kind of forgot it.
Okay.
So I guess I'll just add on top of that another question. So did you experience any particular advantages or setbacks as an Asian artist in a predominantly non-Asian industry?
I personally kind of liked it. Because for example, I'm in a hip hop and trap group called Night Market. It's me and my two boys, Jason Chu and Saki Boy. And yeah, we've done a lot of hip hop gigs. We've done a lot of rap gigs where we're like the only Asian people in the club, or, you know, one out of very few Asian people, like much less Chinese people. And I personally felt like that was motivation, to be really honest. I had a friend ask me end of last year, like, what was your favorite, 2 years ago, what was your favorite memory of 2019? And I told her it was this gig where me and Jason, my mentor and head of the group, we flew to Philly to do this performance for an Asian American film festival. And love Philly to death, because the way they build communities out there, very diverse. Like, even though it was an Asian American film festival, hip hop showcase and concert, like it was a super diverse crowd. And even sometimes in LA, it can feel like the Asian people stick with the Asians, Black people stick with the Black people, white people stick with the white people. But in Philly, it was just this beautiful melting pot. And that was the best performance we've ever done, because as soon as our music started, like, everybody just stood up and started jumping and like screaming. It was the best feeling ever. And to me, the best comments afterwards were people that weren't Asian coming up to us and be like, yo, that was amazing. Like, you guys are crazy. You guys got to keep going, you know? And yeah, I just take it as motivation, honestly. And again, speaking to earlier, I think it's something that's really interesting to people right now, even though politically, on some level, people are very like wary of China and everything going on over there. But I think culturally, people are fascinated with Chinese culture, like fascinated. So I think as Chinese American artists, especially, it's like there's already that interest there. How can we use what's already ours, what's already our heritage? How can we like celebrate that and share that with other Americans in an authentic way? And I think, it's like I feel chills right now, because it's like, wow, what an opportunity. You know, it's like we don't know when there's going to be another surge of interest in Chinese culture like this in America. So,
Yeah. I think that's a really good way to put that, because I feel like a lot of people might be sort of like thinking, oh, well, there aren't that many Asian people in the industry. I'm going to feel a lot of drawbacks. There's going to be a lot of disadvantages. I won't have as many opportunities. But that might not necessarily be true because you're going to be the first of your kind. People are going to be fascinated with what you have to offer. And it might perhaps be more important to normalize having Asian people in the industry rather than think, oh, Asian people should not be in the industry. There's this other question from a university student from Vanderbilt, and they had a question about how your sort of work processes, adding a little bit more to that. So they said that when you're thinking about, producing music, do you focus more on small section goals with your creative work, or do you just naturally let the results flow on its own time and then you work over continuous feedback?
Thank you, Jesse. That's a great question. And I think it depends on what phase in someone's career it is. I know for me, in college, it was just free flow. It was just free flow because I didn't have any obligations to anyone to create. So I just created when I felt inspired. Now, as someone who's been pretty much like almost a full-time artist, basically for a while, it becomes a little different. It becomes a little different because then now every move I make, it's not just a for pleasure thing. Because in college, it's very much like I'm just gonna write when I feel inspired or I just really want to write. But now it's twofold. It's one, when do I enjoy how to write, but also, if there's no set number, but Spotify and many other social media platforms definitely reward consistent content, and that can sometimes be difficult as a creator. So it's really a balance of looking at something and being like, this. My mentor says it's got to do one of two things. Anything I do has to do one of two things. It has to either move the needle, move my career forward in some way, whether it's a specific relationship I want with someone in the industry. Okay, I'll do that. I'll do that thing for free. But it creates relationship. It's a stepping stone. Or it has to pay me. Or there has to be money involved. At least one of the two. If it does neither of the two, then at this point I need to question, why am I doing it? Because I love music, of course, but now I'm in a position in my life where I'm really thinking about, where's this money going to come from? Any money that I invest into a music video, into studio time, into even producing a song, what's my ROI down the line for this? Am I going to leverage this music video as material to book a college tour? Am I going to use it to seek corporate gigs during API Heritage Month, for example? So that's something I'm doing next week. I'm doing a Zoom gig for a corporation as part of their API Heritage celebration. So what is this doing for me? But it's a balancing act, because if as artists we become too business oriented or calculating, that can kill our creativity, because then we're not creating from a pure place. So yeah, it's definitely a different process for everyone. But I think if you're really, and that's where the distinction is, really asking yourself if you want to be a hobbyist at what you do. I believe you said performing arts and film. So that's the difference between saying, obviously there's many ways of working in the film industry, even as a PA or office worker. But it just depends what capacity. Because there's a difference between saying like, oh, I want to direct my short films and have them on the film festival circuit. Great, that's an awesome goal. Versus I want to be the next Christopher Nolan and transform the landscape of filmmaking transform the landscape of filmmaking and make hundreds of millions of dollars per film. Those are very different life paths. So yeah, I'm not sure what your individual goals are, but yeah, as a creativity coach, anytime I work with a client, that's question number one. That's question number one, because how grand, how big, how small your goals are, that completely, that can change. The core approach is still the same, but the rigor and the intensity and the discipline that's required for either is different. It's different. So it just depends on the level of your ambition. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting, you know, my creativity to be a hobby, to be an outlet. I've just in my life made that decision of going, I don't want to be a hobbyist. I want to do this the best that I can. And I'm going to devote a lot of time and energy and resources and love towards this thing. So yeah, Jesse, I hope that answered your question. But let me look at the second half of your question. More small section goals or continuous. Yeah. So yeah, at this point, I work with an entertainment agency, and I'm talking to a label right now. So again, it's helpful because I have a lot of people that are ready to support me. I'm in a very different place in my career, because when I first started doing this work, I had to do everything. When I did my first album and I ran my own Kickstarter, I had to reach out to people to get graphics. I had to reach out to people to ask for money. I had to write the songs. I had to show up to the studio to record the songs. I had to coordinate with producers to get split sheets. Every bit of my career, I had to do like by hand or be directly delegating it to someone, versus now I'm very fortunate and lucky to have a label that really believes in me. So a lot of branding things or logistical things like booking emails, negotiating with people for price and things like that, I'm able to hand off to someone on a team. But what that also creates, yes, is a lot of continuous feedback with a very tight team, and of whose opinions I really trust. So I'd say now it's a lot more regimented. But I'd say for me, that having that really strict structure and regimentation, and knowing that if I write a song, it's going to be heard by Drew, it's going to be heard by Jason, then we're going to take those notes and we'll go at it again the very next week, because I already have those studio sessions scheduled. So for me, it's been building a lifestyle that includes the continuous feedback, that includes the people that are there to support me, that includes people that I really trust to guide me and hold space for me creatively. So thank you, Jesse, for the question. I hope that answered, and yeah, let me know if you have any follow-up question.
Yeah, and I think that definitely adds to a lot of the details that you mentioned before about having that kind of schedule in your life where you prioritize certain things. Also thinking about what motivates you in both your art and your degree or career. I think it's really good that you kind of connected that and thought about, well, what are my priorities? Am I going to do this as a hobby? Is it going to be part-time, or am I really going to do it full-time? And then sort of planning your schedule out like that. Let's continue to, you talked about a lot of things, about a lot of the behind the scenes of having to, email a lot of people, ask about continuous feedback. So what were some things you really wish you knew before going into the music industry?
That I really wish I knew before I got into the music industry. Something I used to think about the music industry, that, oh, it's all connections. It doesn't matter how good your work is. If you don't have the connections, it's nothing. And I think that discouraged me sometimes from creating, because I was like, oh, if I create something, where's it even going to go? How am I going to distribute it or put marketing dollars behind it? And I think that's now I now see how that's such a backwards way of thinking, because there is no marketing without the art. You can't market something that doesn't exist or isn't already an appealing form of art. So in terms of energy for an artist, especially an artist starting out, I'd say 95% of your energy should be devoted to your craft. Whatever you're doing, are you looking to be, a song, like a song composer for animated films? Well, your music better be pretty good, right? If you're looking to compete on that level, if you're a filmmaker, it's like, oh, I want to get into Sundance, or I want to get into any one of these huge film festivals. It's like, well, how good is your story? Is it in touch with current culture? Does it advance the current conversation on culture? Is it something that's unique to you that you're passionate about? But at the beginning, for anyone, it's that iterative process, right? Of, let me write a bad song. Let me write a slightly less bad song. Let me make a bad film. Let me make a slightly less bad film. And through that process, that's when everything else comes. Like, that's when labels came to me to want to represent me or support me or invest in me. But there needs, I talked to this entertainment lawyer on my label, and he's written this book called Breaking the Business. And in the book, he talks about how, at least in the music industry, record labels have been given a disproportionate amount of power and disproportionate amount of money and resources, because without someone to create, there is no record label, because they have nothing to push. They have nothing to capitalize off of. So so for any artists out there, that's the trickiest part of being an artist, is believing that something you create now or will eventually create is going to be of incredible value to someone, whether it's on the financial end of, oh, we're going to invest in Elise's, we're going to invest X amount of money into Elise's film. It's going to make us 5 times that. Let's go. Or just simply the belief, like, wow, what I make is going to change someone's life. And that's another belief. Hopefully you believe both, right? My work can be life-changing, and it's worthy of investment. And that creates the sustainability of any creative model. So I'd say that's really the toughest part. Yeah. That core belief.
I think it's good to think about the value that you have in your art, because I feel like a lot of people, I mean, I know that I myself used to not really think about that. I would just be drawing for the fun of it, or playing on my instrument for the fun of it. I wouldn't really be thinking about, oh, well, how can I really make this meaningful, until I started really thinking about, oh, how could I have an art career? You would need to have something that's more meaningful. You would need to really try to bring out emotions in others. So I think that's really good coming from an actual artist in the industry, telling you to think about the value of your work and less about what other people might think of the value of your work. So for the next question, I want to ask you, what advice would you give yourself as a high school student, or also as a college student, looking back on it now?
That's funny, because even looking back now, I think I did a lot of the right things in high school and college. It was really that kind of post-college period of 2 years that were really tough. But thinking back, being brave and asking for collaborations, because I remember even in high school or college, I felt like I had to do everything myself, or like, I'm a singer-songwriter. I always got to present my own songs and do this. It's always got to be from myself as an artist, versus like really coming in with the mindset of, who do I want to collaborate with? Because what I know about myself now is, like, collaboration brings me the most energy. And that's so important for an artist, right? Because it's not about being a one-hit wonder. And I mean, if someone is and you earn a few $1 million off of that, that's incredible. And you don't want to touch art ever again. Amazing. But yeah, for me, it's like how can I make this a marathon, not a sprint? How can I make sure that, and this extends to a lot of different things, like making sure I'm eating well, I'm eating my vegetables. You know, shout out to my mom in here, who's, you know, a nutrition coach that's supported me a lot with that. It's like, how can I enjoy this for a long time? You know, like I'm not trying to grind myself to dust and then hopefully make some money off of it. You know, if I want to do that, I'd go into like iBanking or something. Yeah, which is really, really intense. But I want to enjoy this process because, yeah, I didn't choose art to not enjoy it. It's the opposite of the point to me. Yeah.
So we have another question in the chat. You mentioned your mom and how she helped you think about your nutrition and about how to make your life really fulfilling. So they have a question more about what can parents do to prepare the kids to enter the entertainment industry?
What parents can do to prepare? Give them the space to create. Really give them the space to create, and really let go of any notions you have about what the entertainment industry is, because the entertainment industry is changing every single day. So, and likely your kid understands the current landscape of entertainment a lot better than you do. So that's why curiosity is important too, to ask your kid, like, oh, you know, what is it like today? What kind of arts do you want to do? You know, what does that look like? But being the adult, you probably have a lot more life experience, right? So you understand things that need to be in place, right? Like, oh, you need just general life lessons, right? You need good people around you that you can trust. You also need to work hard and be disciplined. But simply saying those things is different than asking questions about it. For example, asking someone like, oh, you want to go into the film industry? Like, what part of the film industry? Like, why? Like, oh, you know, you want to be the person holding the boom mic on a film set. Amazing. Why? Oh, you know, like, I'm really passionate about sound. It's like, oh, cool. Like, where are there, you know, who's hiring there right now? Or like, what kind of company do you want to work in? Because a lot of different film productions need sound people, but it's like, oh, do you have a specific interest? And then as these and you can make your point through asking questions instead of just saying a statement. And I think for me personally, well, my parents do that, it's a lot more memorable because I'm given the space to figure something out on my own. It's like, oh, how do you, you know, what's your dream? What's your biggest dream? Oh, I want to work as a sound guy for Christopher Nolan. I know I brought him up before. It's like, whoa, you know, it's really specific. And there's a lot of power to specificity in this industry because it's a really big industry. And even just saying entertainment, it's like difficult to give advice to such a general question, if I'm also being honest, because the entertainment industry is so broad. So broad. For example, technically, me and my cousin both work in the entertainment industry, but I'm a singer, rapper, artist, recording artist, and she's a visual artist who does illustration and digital art, among many other forms of art. And our paths have been completely different because they're completely different sides of the industry with completely different people and personalities. But I think the overarching advice that I can give is, yeah, be really curious. Be really curious. And yeah, a lot of the times the kid may not know an answer to your question, but it creates the possibility that they might start thinking that question is important. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to guide people. Even with me, as I coach people on creativity, I try to ask as many questions as possible. Very rarely in my coaching do I say to someone, "Oh, great question. Here's your answer." It's usually an answering a question with a question.
I think it's really meaningful for a lot of young people here who just heard you say for the parents to kind of be asking questions about it rather than making assumptions. Because I know that a lot of my friends, they sometimes feel a little bit frustrated just because not only just with parents, but also with a lot of people that they talk to kind of make a lot of assumptions about what they're doing, kind of like, oh, you're painting, you're going to be the next Van Gogh. It's like, no, that's not really what I'm thinking about. So yeah. I think that definitely means a lot from a real artist in the industry that, yeah, you should be asking a lot of open-ended questions and having them kind of tell you what they're interested in, because then they also feel really appreciated as well. So you mentioned towards the end there that you are a creativity coach, and that as a creativity coach, you ask a lot of questions. So I'm just going to ask a little bit about your experience as a creativity coach.
Sure.
Why are you passionate about developing younger artists as a coach?
Because I think art is a medium towards peace, because a lot of conflict in the world, I believe, is misunderstanding, is a commitment to seeing someone as other or different. So I believe some of the most noble work is really supporting a next generation of artists and telling their stories authentically. And I know through my experience as an artist that there's so much that can get in the way of an artist, even before stepping out into the real world. Like things in your heart, things in your experience that are, beliefs about myself, like, oh, I'm not good enough to be an artist. I could never be like that artist I admire. I'll never be good enough at what I'm doing. And it's oftentimes these really crippling beliefs about ourselves that stop us from creating. Again, I was saying earlier about faith. Faith is such an important muscle to develop, because with faith can come discipline. With faith can come passion. With faith can come contentment and peace and commitment. But without that faith as a foundation, it can be really shaky. So when I work with people, it's going really deep. It's going really deep, to be honest, about, okay, you don't believe that you deserve to be an artist, can be an artist. Where does that come from? And really digging deep. And to be honest, with many of the clients I've seen, and I think with most humans in general, it comes from some sort of childhood experience. And often that has to do with the parents. But on the flip side, as yourself, as individually, as the artist, we can't just blame our parents for everything and use that as a way to shirk responsibility from what we actually want to do. So the balancing point is to acknowledge, okay, this belief came from a certain way, something my parent said to me at one point in time, but I'm going to no longer choose to believe that, because I believe in something bigger for myself, for my art, for my creation. And I think that process is really important for any artist, is to know what your limiting beliefs are and where they come from. And I did a bunch of self-development work with this company called MITT. And that was a really important part of it, because a lot of it is so rooted and so self-conscious that we don't even realize it. For example, I realized for myself, it was like, oh, wow, my mom is such a dope, amazing, smart, brilliant woman who's talented at so many things, that growing up subconsciously, there was a part of me that's like, I'm never going to be as good or as cool as my mom. So, and that became part of my inner conversation, right? And that's something I had to go in, acknowledge, heal, and release, so that wouldn't come up again anytime I tried to write a song or do work for my career. So taking a step back to really do that work is really important, and I've seen the benefit for myself as an artist because I've done that, and I want to create space for other artists to do that, people that want to create in their life. And I think it's really powerful to hear from an artist who's currently in the industry, who's currently creating, who's currently doing this day to day, still creating, striving for that next level for myself. I've seen that it's really helpful to hear from another artist. And I know for me, throughout my career in the entertainment industry, I've had many amazing mentors who I've been able to go to that were like, yeah, that was the right move, or maybe you could have done this, or even just to be there as encouragement. It's like, hey, I know it's hard right now. I know it's difficult. I know it seems like you want to give up and that this isn't worth it, but I see something in you. I see a talent, a light in you that you get to keep moving forward with. And it's like the accumulation of all those moments, whether it's through friends or my parents or my mentors or my collaborators, that's the reason I'm still here. Because it's hard to be in the industry that I have been in for the last 6-7 years, but it's really the people and the quality of the people that you surround yourself with that, yeah, creates careers. Like, it takes a village to take that thing.
Yeah, I think it's really great that you think about it from both perspectives, not just as a kid, but also as a parent, kind of the ways that you should be communicating with each other. And I also think that the way you brought up faith and confidence, that's definitely one of the main issues that I've seen in a lot of people who are interested in arts at my school, because usually, yeah, they're not really the most sociable people. And with that, it's a lot of self-esteem issues, confidence issues, and they're not really confident in themselves enough to actually express themselves and show people their work. So I think it's really great that you're able to provide the kind of support that parents aren't always necessarily able to provide to their kid as well. And I think it's really great coming from an actual person in the industry. Just the kind of advice and feedback that you would be able to give a lot of artists is definitely really helpful for a lot of them.
Yeah, and from the artist side again, I think that's where, as artists, we get to develop a thick skin, because no one will ever truly understand us as we do ourselves, and that's okay. That's okay, because everyone's the hero in their own story, so to speak. And it's not about, to me, it's not about wanting everyone to understand me perfectly, but for me, it's knowing how to express myself or present myself where I am as honest as I can be and as true to myself as I can be. And then how people interpret me from them, that's not up to me. I literally cannot control that. So yeah, controlling what we can as artists and being gracious and graceful with the people that are trying to understand us, but may not be fully understanding. So what it may look like, maybe, yeah, for the kids in high school right now, yes, your parents may not understand TikTok or the whole cultures and subcultures that develop on TikTok, but that's okay. How can you learn from each other while being gracious to each other for what the other side doesn't understand? Because I'm sure there's things that we don't understand fully that our parents sometimes get upset at us about. So how can we create that bridge and be ultimately kind to each other? I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely takes two people to really bridge that connection together. So I kind of want to take this in a different direction now, because I've been getting a lot of
Sure.
questions, personal like direct questions in the chat to myself, addressing the Asian hate that's going on right now. So as just a general question to you, what are your thoughts on the growing Asian hate in this country as of this moment?
Yeah, it feels especially tough for me because I grew up in China mostly, and even when I was in China, I felt very American. Every time I come back to America, you know, over the summer from China, it felt like coming home, because I remember in China, all these Chinese people are looking at me, the way I dress, the way I talk. It's like, oh, he's obviously not Chinese. 他是那个 ABC 的那些孩子，跟我们不一样。So I always felt like America was home. So to come back to America and feel like, whoa, you know, sometimes we're not at home here, or we're not accepted here. And in college, that's when I learned a lot of history about Asian Americans, especially Chinese Americans in history. Yeah, there was a period between the 1880s to like the 1940s where Chinese people weren't allowed to come into this country. It was called the Chinese Exclusion Act. So learning that, I think I haven't been surprised by some of the anti-Asian violence recently, because I have studied that history. I know that, oh, you know, this isn't new. Like history can be very cyclical in that way. But it hurts all the same. It hurts all the same. A lot of the songs I've been writing recently are about that. Yeah, it's an unreleased song, but I was writing a song called Come Back Home, and I write in both English and Mandarin. And it's just about, you know, beneath the anger of everything, I just want my mom and dad to come home safe. I want my little brother to get home safe. I want all the Chinese community to like be able to get home safe to their families and not have an empty seat at the dinner table, you know. And I asked my mom to record a voice message as if she was just speaking into like being worried about me. And yeah, that's like in the song as well. So yeah, art's been a way for me to feel like I'm part of the conversation. Like I really want to contribute to the world the sense of, hey, you know, we're just as human. We have families, people that love us, and let's just stop this violence. It doesn't, you know, there's something better available to us. And I think that's the power of art as well. But I feel very hopeful. I feel very hopeful because through all the violence that's happening, people from other backgrounds, other races are seeing like, whoa, I guess there are people in our communities, or there are people around us that hate Chinese people and are willing to just, it's like, that's not okay. So then I think it connects us to people from other cultures that are also seeing the same thing and being like, that's not okay. That's not okay in my community. So that's not okay when it happens to your community. So I see it as like it's a bonding experience, really. And just as you see the bad come out in people, you also see a lot of good, a lot of, again, grace and faith come out in people. So I feel really hopeful.
Yeah, I think that people often see a lot of discrimination in other races in this country. And usually people think of, oh, the Chinese have been more privileged, so their problem doesn't mean as much. But then it's really great that we see all of the other minority groups coming in and saying, no, it's the same thing. We're all being discriminated against. And it really makes the community a lot stronger when people don't focus on their individual problems and they think about the problem as a whole. So I think we're gonna, yeah, there's another question that's following up on that about your own personal experience with racism in work. And if you've had any of those experiences, how do you deal with them?
Yeah, I've definitely had experiences. I remember, I remember in when I first got into college, I wasn't sure what to call myself, or like how to, like the question, where are you from? It's like, I could say the Bay Area, but I was there till I was 6. You know, I could say I'm from Beijing, but then people just think I'm Chinese versus American and Chinese at the same time. So I remember that first week just calling myself, I'm from Beijing. I'm from Beijing, and many questions about why I speak English so well. And yeah, it just was like, wow, you know, as soon as I say I'm from China, there's like almost a part of their brains that I was like, oh, he's from somewhere else. You know, he doesn't get it. He's different. I think I used to take it really personally, wishing that, you know, wishing everyone in the world understood me perfectly. And that came from, you know, my own insecurity about my culture, my own insecurity about where I was in my life, how I was showing up in my life. And yeah, now I'm in a place where, like I was saying earlier, I can't control how people react to me or my story. But I can control how confident I am in myself. And most importantly, I can control how kind I am to people or how gracious I am to people, regardless of the situation. And that graciousness often looks like telling someone like, hey, I don't know if you know, but what you said was actually quite offensive to me, and this is why. And not saying this to shame you, I just want you to know. Again, the graciousness and the kindness and that explanation and in sharing that perspective. Yeah, that's how I deal with it. Kill him with kindness. It's my it's my approach.
Yeah, I think that's really good, is thinking that people have all grown up with a different history, right? They've all, they haven't had those same kind of exposure that you've had living in China and in the US. They don't really understand the same things.
That's right.
So expecting for them to have that same kind of exposure just doesn't really work. Unfortunately, we have to switch to Chinese now. Well, not unfortunately, but we have to switch to Chinese now. So
let's do it.
Kathy, do you want us to take a quick break and let people kind of relax a little bit, or should we just go into it?
I think let's just go into it. People could take a break at the choice, right?
Yeah.
So all at home. So
okay, so just
it's doing great. You guys are doing wonderful.
Okay, so for all of the younger people out there who want to contact Lowhi, do you want to give them just a way to contact you right now, if they need to?
So I'll type in my Instagram, which is Lowhi official, and let me confirm what my WeChat is, since I changed it recently. Okay. Yeah, my WeChat. Yeah, so this goes out to any parents as well that want to reach out to me just to talk about, you know, their kid and how you can support them in your journey. And again, I'm a creativity coach. So if you'd like to contact me about that, we can, you know, set up a chat, talk about, you know, what you're looking for, talk about what your kid, or preferably, honestly, if your kid could reach out to me themselves. I'd really prefer that, and you know why they're interested in this kind of work. Yeah, so my line's open, and yeah, would love to figure out how I can support you as a parent in your process, or for someone in high school or college. Would love to, yeah, just take some time to get to know you and figure out what your dreams are, what your ambitions are, and see how I can support you there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, great. Okay, so make sure if you have any more questions, unfortunately we don't have much more time to be talking about those kind of questions right now. We're going to be switching over to the parents section, which is going to be in Chinese, and it's going to be more about bridging that divide between generational gaps and cultural gaps with parents and their children. If you have any more questions about how to develop your artist career, please contact Lowhi through WeChat or through his Instagram handle. 好了，现在我们到了第二个部分，就是我们要讲中文了。我想有很多父母在线上，所以就是在美国出生长大的孩子，就像我自己，与爸爸妈妈有很大的文化差异，所以我们要想怎么样代沟共同成长。 请大家写上你的问题，也可以举手打开镜头，问 Lowhi 问题。我们会叫今天活动的主持人 Kathy Pang，会选择一些大家写下来的问题问 Lowhi。我开始问一个问题，所以 Lowhi， 你向艺术发展，你的爸爸妈妈给了你什么样的影响？
妈和爸对我影响很大，因为小的时候，不只是让我弹钢琴，拉提琴，也是让我去跳舞，上跳舞的课，上画画的课，还有的时候周末在做作业的时候，妈妈就跟我说，外面那么漂亮，你在里面做作业干嘛？给我出去玩。当时就觉得好多这些经验都是尤其是我妈妈让我出去玩，让我出去试这些不同的东西，所以我现在的兴趣就挺广的。我也会跳舞，也会唱歌，也会说唱，现在也开始就做 acting，这样的东西，所以就对，尤其是很看向我妈妈，因为当时她在北京，也会自己上好多不同的课，画画的课，吹喇叭的课，什么的课。好，她现在也是上好多课，所以她这个对生活的态度，对我的影响是很大的。就当一个 lifelong learner，他就总是想，哎，怎么多学个东西，怎么我现在知道的东西就学好一点就可能是他当科学家的这个态度吧，就学了很多对，和我爸长大的时候也教了我好多东西，也教我打高尔夫球，教我下围棋，教我下象棋昨天就跟我妈妈说，就我爸爸的角色就是来挑战我，就是就这个新的东西你可以学，你可以学得好。像比如说以前跟他打象棋，跟他下象棋，他会我们下之前，他让我3个字，我拿一个军，拿一个炮，拿一个马。还有就觉得能从这个象棋看着我生活的这个成长，因为可能下一年我下的好点了，我学的更多关于象棋的东西，只让我2个字。还有现在我回家回家跟他下棋，就是他都不用他不给我让子我们轮着第一个下，所以他总是这样的挑战我，就问着我怎么能把这个东西弄得更好。还有比如高尔夫球也是嘛，you know，调着我的 swing， 就每次做 OK 调一下，所以我觉得现在对音乐的这个态度也是一样的，写一首歌也是很相似的一个过程。因为就比如说，这个字，我有想表达的一个情绪，这个字比较好，还是这个字比较好？就像调那高尔夫球的那个 swing 一样的，所以好多这些life lesson 从他学的因为他总是在挑战我，哈哈，所以从象棋学了很多。
对，我也有一个很一样的经验，就是我小的时候，我的父母也会给我很多不同的机会，就是所以我很喜欢艺术还有运动，因为就是我小的时候会做很多不同的运动，就会跳舞、体操、打网球，都有很多不同的运动，也有我哥哥也有跟我不一样的运动，所以我就想着，哇，我父母真的有很多不同的 efforts， 你知道吗？他们真的让我们做很多， 然后呢，我长大的时候，他们没有给我这些机会，就是我自己要去看一下我最喜欢做的是什么，然后他们就不会问我，不会去叫我去做一些东西，他们就说你想做的你就告诉我们，然后我们会来 support，就加一点 support 给你。所以我真的可以看出来，就是有一点像。好，那我们看，我们知道你在第一个部分里面说了你爸爸妈妈怎么样培养你与人打交道，所以还有哪些方面你对父母很感恩？
因为当时我毕业后想做音乐，确实是挺困难的，因为当时就不只是音乐了，就生活就觉得觉得不知道想做什么，是不是想做音乐，还有当时也没工作，觉得生活没什么方向还有当时就特别对我家长感恩的，就是他们就无论我自己有什么情况，都是不停的支持我，给我打电话看我怎么样，当时也给我介绍了好多不同的人，他们认识在中国做什么音乐的东西人都让我见，虽然我当时也有点不知道我想被介绍到什么人，但他们就总在想着我嘛，就觉得这样的支持是对我是很有帮助的，因为他们就没逼我说现在你必须要去找个工作，或者你必须要这样子，你必须要这样子，但是他们就给了我这个空间，还有在这空间中我也学了好多东西，因为我当时也是在餐馆打工的，还有好累，好累，有时候我一天在餐馆工作了8、9小时，回家在床上觉得哇，这东西太累了，还能想医院吗？还能想梦想吗？就觉得太累了，但是当时就跟家长说，还有我爸那个跟我当时年龄差不多，他也是在餐馆打工的，所以他就也跟我说他的经验，他就说这个经验肯定是对你好的，你会学一些东西，你的时间不是浪费的所以这些这样跟我说的支持和那空间是对我很有帮助的。
对，我觉得你说的空间很有意思，因为我觉得有很多学生他们学习很惨，就是说他们没有很多时间就是想着其他的活动，因为每天8个小时要学习，然后还有作业也会很累的，就是像你在餐馆做工作也是挺累的。也有很多人不只有学校，也有很多其他的活动要做，每天都要做所以我觉得给他们一些空间时间，他们可以真的想着他们最喜欢做的活动是什么，然后就是继续做那些活动
对，还有家长会就跟我说，就在你面前的东西就是要做好，无论是什么，虽然可能是我当时不是特别想做的东西，但是你面前的东西就是要做得好还有就从那一句学了很多，因为当时有时候在餐馆打工，觉得我不想这样子生活下去，就这些感觉但是就听了那之后，觉得 OK， 虽然我现在在这儿，我是选择在这儿工作的，我是选择在这儿打工的，那如果我选择的东西，我就要做好。我选择做的东西就是要做好，还有现在，因为我有那些经验，就我选的东西做好，我现在可以把那个经验放到音乐里。 现在选择音乐就要把这做好。
对，看起来你说你的父母给你很多空间时间，所以这也让你做很多你自己的选择，对吗？所以你怎么样让你的父母理解你的爱好、想法还有选择？
就是要跟他们理解，因为像刚才在英文说的，就是他们也不可能就特别理解美国的这个 entertainment industry 嘛，他们也没经验，
对，
所以好多时候就对我是很正常的事情，就我已经知道的东西我就不能感觉他们已经可能他们已经完全了解我，因为我每天也在学新的东西，每天也是有新的经验。但是如果我不跟他们说这些新的经验和新学的东西，他们就不可能了解我。所以我就要也跟他们开朗嘛，也是要跟他们说这些东西，因为如果我不告诉他们，还有谁告诉他们呀？
对，那就是一个好的道理。我看的在第一个部分里面有一些人问的问题，就是有很多孩子有不同的兴趣，与爸爸妈妈的兴趣还有期望不一样，所以你有什么话对这些爸爸妈妈说？
这是没问题的，我觉得其实这是很好的事情，因为如果你的兴趣都是一模一样的，可能有一天就说完了嘛。但是如果你有这些不同的兴趣，你们可以永远的互相学嘛，互相说，像我和我妈，她做这些nutrition coaching 的东西，好多这些科学的东西我都不了解，但是我弟弟做这些好多的科学的东西就很了解，还有很有兴趣，所以就吃饭的时候，我就好多时候就听着我弟弟跟我妈说这些 nutrition 什么 protein 的东西，我也不是特别了解的，但是我就坐在那儿听着，就也学了很多，就觉得是挺有趣的。
对，我也觉得很有意思，因为就是如果你们的兴趣不一样，你可以学更多东西，因为你有那种他们有很多经验你没有经历过，就是说他们可以告诉你东西你在学校学不了，所以我觉得这样让孩子告诉你没有学过的东西，你也告诉他们你的经验，这都是还是挺好的。那你觉得父母有不同的期望呢？你觉得他们应该干什么呢？
是问的孩子，如果家长对着孩子的期望不是他们自己的想法，
对，
问的孩子要怎么样？
两个都怎么样？
因为不只是 entertainment industry， 所有的 industry 都是看结果的吧，都是很看结果的。还有我其实觉得这个不是坏事，因为如果你是真想做艺术的一个人，你虽然有一个过程，这个creative process， 但是你最后还是追求就不同的结果。还有如果比如你的家长对你有啥样的期望，就最好就更努力做你的艺术，因为我当时就我毕业的那一年之中，觉得没什么结果没什么结果，觉得不好意思跟我家长说这艺术的东西。但是有一天就在微信上有个什么中国好声音的一个人就找 就找这些就做海选嘛，就在微信里给我沟通，还有当时就给我家长看，当个结果嘛，还有当时他就到处在不同的微信群里说就觉得挺开心的嘛，但是对我想说的就是，对，当一个艺术人，有的时候最开心的时候就是跟我们爱的人分享这些结果的。还有因为我有一阵时间也觉得，哎呀，这个结果不够厉害，我不跟他们分享。但是现在就有什么好的结果，都会一下子跟我家长分享，还有这样子，他们也更理解我，我也能跟他们就分享我最近做的怎么样嘛。
对，然后如果学艺术的人们，他们告诉他们的父母他们的结果是什么，那父母也可以就用他们自己的经验来告诉他们应该做一些什么可以成功，所以我觉得这也是很有意思的。那这个部分就是父母有很多问题他们可以来自己问，所以Kathy 现在你来主持父母直接问问题吧。Lowhi 很高兴与你对话，我学习了很多，希望在线上的学生们也跟我一样受到了很多启发，祝你们成功，谢谢大家。
谢谢Elise。我知道我们今天时间已经是过了很长了，那个Lowhi你的时间 OK 吗？我们要给几个
时间 OK，
时间 OK， 好，谢谢你，你们俩非常的棒，好吧？现在请大家干脆开麦举手来问问题，好吗？我们也很难得，有二代出来跟我们对话。我们自从 pandemic 以来搞了60-70场讲座，全部都是给一代的，所以我们很多朋友也是说，哎呀，我能不能叫二代出来跟我们对话？Here we go， 好吧？我们一代跟二代树立榜样，怎么样 be visible, be heard， 是吧？打开 video， 直接问问题，从这里开始锻炼，给我们二代做榜样。二代也可以开哈，都没关系啊，大家都可以随便问问题。我好像还没看见人举手哎。哇哦，你看这就是咱们中国人的风格啊，好想问问题的。OK， 有人西素 ，Great。
哎，你好，
非常棒。
我来问第一个问题，就是今天有个朋友跟我讲，听的还是蛮伤心的。他说他想跟他的孩子大概11岁想交流，结果他的孩子跟他说，就是你问的话我也不会告诉你，我告诉你的话呢，你也不会这个理解我，所以我就不跟你说。所以我在想，你们二代如果说这是你们在青春期成长的一个阶段，如果是的话呢，怎么过来的？或者说这可能是一个很极端的亲子关系不好的这么一个例子，你身边的朋友有没有这样的孩子？你的朋友，你觉得这些孩子需要什么？需要什么？父母怎样做去打破他们之间的零沟通？好，谢谢。
很好的问题。我觉得，因为我觉得所有的孩子就是想被听到，但是可能因为就以前家长没太听他们的，或者他们说出他们的想法和他们就看东西的角度，就没听到他，或者就是说你的想法是错的，我的是对的，所以孩子就觉得我说你也不听，我说你也不听，我就不让你听，我不跟你说。我觉得能修的这个方面就是接着问，就是不能1、2、3次问能解决的事情，就是要 就怎么说要弄成一个 habit。所以如果能怎么说很 consistently 做这个东西，这个孩子可以感觉哦，虽然爸爸妈妈以前没太听我们，但是最近这整个月他们每天都问我好，都问我哎怎么样啊你有好吗？就是我觉得就是个过程嘛，就是做出这个改变，就不能是改变了1-2天就觉得哎呀我问题就不行了，就彻底不做，就是我觉得尤其是那个，对我尤其觉得就11、12岁的那时候，就是特别要跟他们多沟通，多问问题，比如像你今天感觉怎么样啊？你今天有什么高兴的事情？你今天有什么难过的事情？可能第1个月2月你问这些问题，他们都不会听，都觉得妈妈爸爸都那么啰嗦，但是就是我觉得就是一个过程，就可能是过很久才能修上这个东西。
也有朋友在群里头说了，换一个方式问，然后呢，还要挑孩子的心情好的时候。如果孩子本来就忙得要命又 stressful 的时候，去问那些他不想回答的问题，也是个 challenge。一定是 right place, right timing 啊，然后persistent， 对吧？其实孩子们也是很懂事的，他们也知道父母对他是关心是爱的，非常好。好了，下一个是 Yang， 谁有问题？打开麦克来问好吗？我们跟孩子做个榜样哈，一定 be heard, be visible。如果我们自己都不愿意出来问问题的话，孩子们也没有这种风格啊。好吗？
是我吗 ？Kathy， 你是说是我吗？
是可以啊。
是哈，我
Yeah.
打开那个 video， 我sorry， 那我就不在这浪费时间，先不打开 video 了哈。Hello。
好，没关系。
对，首先我先 compromise 一下 Elise 和Lowhi， 他们真的是好棒的孩子，真的是 Elise 的采访的水平简直就跟电视的主持人一样。然后 Lowhi 也是，你26岁在人生历练和处理那个人生各方面的关系方面已经这么成熟了，真的是太棒了。我的问题就是我来美国20几年了，我2个小孩。老大呢今年上大学，老二是7年级。我感觉特别是从 Trump 做 president 以后现在对中国那边的华人的负面的那个报道好多我有时候父母想跟他correct一下这些东西呢，感觉那个 conversation 都不是很容易，他们都是 choose to trust 这个 media 的东西。我想请问一下你们对这个问题怎么看，然后有什么建议？
因为我觉得有时候就说这些 politics 的东西，就是个人都会有不同的观点嘛，但是我觉得最后的说还是个人都是有个人的经验，还有这个经验是怎么说不能否定的。像比如说因为我觉得我们当孩子也是想理解我们的家长为什么那样想。比如我们想知道你为什么那样子想，就是你小时候有什么经验吗？或者小时候在中国看到什么东西，所以就对生活有什么观点。我觉得这个怎么说观点底下的经验我们是想知道的。我觉得这个会在对话中对个人之间的理解会有很大的帮助。
然后我请问一下Lowhi你回答你们会不会对你们自己 Chinese 这个 heritage 很 proud？ 你这方面会有受到打击吗？你觉得？
我有一段时间也是觉得，哎呀，就在美国当中国人觉得跟别人不同我肯定也是有这一段，但是我觉得当 teenager 上大学的时候，我觉得大家都是有对他们自己的自己某样的这样的感觉，但是反正对这些高中的孩子说嘛，但是就也会成长过这个地方，因为我现在觉得当一个中国人是个特别骄傲的一个事情，因为我好多做关于音乐的事情都是好多人就给我工作，给我这些不同的机会，都是因为我会说中文，我可以用中文写歌用中文唱歌，用中文说唱，所以呀，我自己就现在觉得特别骄傲，还有特别感谢我姥姥当时教我中文，因为如果我就中文不行，或者我跟我这个文化没有这样的connection， 好多我的机会，好多这些机会就完全是就是没有的所以我现在我不知道别的孩子怎么感觉，但是这就是我自己的观点。
我觉得讲得非常棒啊，Lowhi 就是说 be proud be a Chinese American。我觉得我们一代就要做个榜样给二代看。如果我们一代就觉得，哎呀，我做中国人备受歧视啊，然后你老是有这种 mindset， 这种 attitude， 会直接影响到你的孩子。在职场上也是一样的，我们就是说 you need to be proud who you are。就像我经常跟大家讲的，你说英文带着口音，事实上 that shows you are truly global, right? You have different market, different country, different culture experience. So be proud of who you are. 这样才能提高你的自信，你才能把这种自信，才能把骨子里头这种骄傲也传给孩子。所以我们为什么要的一代来二代来对话，怎么样一起共同成长，非常棒。下一个。
Cassie， 我是小燕。我有一个问题问Lowhi哈。你觉得你在中国读了小学、中学、高中，你的这个语言、这个文化对你最大的影响，就是说 something you would have never got educated in America， 就是你学到的最大的文化是什么？就有一天，如果你在奥斯卡的那个领奖台上，你的人之初性本善的那个感言是什么？
我就会说就每个人的文化都是很宝贵的一个东西。就无论谁的，但是我就说说自己吧，就是就对中国文化中国吃的，中国这些好多经验，都是我是因为这些经验和文化就而独特就觉得这个当美国孩子有的时候这感觉就是要我要跟别人不一样，我跟别人不一样，我要比别人做的更好但是如果我停下来就想一下自己的经验，就觉得我不用比别人做的更好，我就每天比自己做的更好能把我的文化，能把我的经验融合到我的歌里面，我的 MV 里面，这些不同的东西，就觉得这一生就觉得挺幸福的希望回答了你的问题。
对，谢谢你。我跟你妈妈是校友，所以为你这样的北大二代感到非常自豪。Very proud of you. Good job.
Thank you.
也讲起利奥的妈妈，我跟她也是好朋友啊。 他呢就不让我说 disclose 他的 name， 本来我说下一次他妈妈来专门来讲一下怎么样培养Lowhi，他妈妈永远老是跟我讲Lowhi教他比他教儿子更多，所以啊，就为什么说共同成长这个 mindset 是非常非常棒，而且你妈妈 so proud of you。And you are too, so proud of your mom and your parents. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. 所以我们这就真的是这个爱是非常重要啊，爱然后给时间和空间。OK, Julian Zhang， 你说吧。打开麦克说吧。Julian 呢？不在的话下一个谁还有问题？我们还最后2个问题吧，因为时间已经比较长了啊。如果是不有人打开麦克问吗？你们的手举起来，但是
那我再问一个问题吧。
OK，
就是一般来说啊，咱们华人家长养孩子有2种比较极端的方法，一个叫推娃或者叫鸡娃。你听见吗？另外一种呢，就是叫完全放养。我有2个例子，一个是推娃的这种方式。
我学，爸妈读吧，妈读妈听读呢。
有一个孩子他是推出来的，我大姐的孩子，他呢在国内那个弹古筝，弹到了最高的级别，然后就跟他妈妈说，他说你要的证书给你拿来了，我这一辈子再也不会碰古筝了。他就真的是再也没碰古筝。然后呢，还有一个孩子呢，他的孩子呢从小放养，什么也没学，钢琴学一半就不学了。然后他后来大了，别人都会这个乐器的时候，他回来跟他妈妈说，你小时候为什么不推我一把，那么轻易的就让我放弃了。所以我在想，在这种推娃和这个让孩子自己放养之间，有没有什么一个 middle way？ 你们的成长经历里面能不能给家长一些建议？好，谢谢。
我觉得我妈妈做的挺好的，就是给我好多机会就是试着不同的东西当时我妈妈也是让我上画画课嘛，但是上了几课就彻底没兴趣。但是就比如别的东西他就看我上跳舞课跳 hip hop， 比如觉得他眼睛亮了一些可能有更多兴趣但是我觉得这样子 like that's the balance， 就是这世界中有很多不同好玩的东西让孩子多试一些不同的东西我觉得是这个真的是能解决那样的。
好吧，现在最后一个问题，看谁来问最后一个问题。
哎，你好，不好意思，我刚才不能够那个 unmute myself。
没关系，你问吧。
好的不好意思，时间可能挺长了，已经那个2个小时了然后我就想等一下我就想问一下，因为我们家现在那个老大现在14岁，然后现在很多就是这种teenager 长大的时候，因为现在这个 social media 挺强的嘛，会在那个 Instagram 上 TikTok 还要看很多那个东西。我发现你们2位孩子的就是这种观点非常 neutral， 我感觉他在看了很多，比如说新疆事件，或者说美国的这种枪战，或者说有枪击事件，或者是其他的这种发生，他就会很极端，就很容易被这些事情所影响我不知道你说作为父母应该怎么去就是我也不能完全 lock 他所有的这些 Instagram 和那个 friend 的那个 communication， 但是如果是受很多这些方面的影响，他就会很negative， 就是在那个看待很多问题的时候， 我不知道这是一个 teenager 成长的过程，还是说这是 building in personality， 或者说我应该怎么去帮他，让他能够更比较那个neutral 的，就是很综合的来中立的看待很多问题。
我觉得 Elise 可能比我好答案这个问题，因为我长大的时候，我好像是12、13岁才有 social media 的，所以我当时就转换到 social media，我小时候已经有好多在外面的时间，好多读书的时间，所以我的这一代可能跟 Elise 的不一样，因为他们就长大了，已经有 social media，是有完全不同的经验。
好，那我可以讲一下吧。就是说，我认为呢，我也是有一点一样，就是跟这些孩子有一点一样，因为我也有 Instagram， 我也有 TikTok， 我都会看着，你知道吗？就是过了这一年，因为就是新冠病毒，我们都要在家里面，好多人只会看 Instagram、TikTok， 不会跟他们的朋友就是聊天那么多，也不会出去那么多，也不会做很多其他的活动。我说呢，我觉得跟很多人就是告诉他们你自己的想法，就是你自己看过的东西。我用我的情况来说，我以前就是一个很 closed mindset，我看 Instagram、TikTok， 我所有的东西都 I just believe in it， 我不会问我自己，这是对不对，我就会说，这是正确的情况，这就是我们现在的情况。然后呢，我开始跟我朋友们告诉他们，他们觉得他们的想法，因为他们没有很多Instagram、TikTok， 他们不会看这些东西。然后我从他们的想法学了很多东西。我也跟我父母讲了，跟我就是哥哥们讲了，他们都告诉我不同的他们自己的想法。然后这样的话，我可以用其他人们的经验，也可以用他们学到的东西，可以自己想起来。但是呢，如果你就直接告诉你的孩子，你错了，你的想法不对你没有看够东西，你没有很多经验，他们就不会认真听你在说什么，你知道吗？
对，对，谢谢你的那个answer， 我觉得是我还是应该多跟他交流，然后有的时候就会像上一次跟他说这个关于在新疆发生的，然后他就开始比如说给他爸辩论啊，然后那个什么，他就会很 emotional 的说，哎，这是什么这个事情发生的，然后他就现在很多孩子就很 believe 就是网上写的这些东西，他不能很正确的去看待或者什么。好，谢谢你的那个回答。
对，我就是说，如果你的孩子会就是这样辩论，也会很生气的。我以前也是很感情用事对事情就不会听其他人告诉我的东西。但是呢，如果我就也问我朋友们，就是跟他们讲这些东西，也有我的父母，他们不只会跟我辩论，他们就会问我问题，就是为什么你想的是这样，你知道吗？然后他们是说，你看过的东西是什么样？你为什么想着是这样 ？Like, what have you recently watched？ 你知道吗？ Or what do you think about this thing that happened recently? What do you think about the Asian hate recently? Have you experienced any Asian hate? How was school? Are your teachers treating you in any way? 就是这种问题就对我来说想着就是我的父母 they care about me， 你知道吗？然后如果他们想着就是you care about them， 不是 you want to be right， 那他们就会想着我明白了。 好，那 Kathy 你要说了吗？
讲的非常好啊，我觉得呢，
我也可以说一下。
好，非常好，你讲吧。
还有，我觉得就是好多这些孩子对这些东西有这样的热情，是个很好的事情。我觉得如果有个孩子就看了所有的这些新闻的东西，反而什么都不感觉，我觉得是更要担心的。所以我觉得，如果我有个孩子，我们就辩论这些事情，我就可能说，虽然我不跟你有一样的观点，但是我喜欢你的热情，你这热情我喜欢。
非常棒
是很好的一个事情，就在不同意的这时候，就能不能还看到这个人的好，就拿点好，我觉得是很重要的，不只是跟家长和孩子之中的就所有的关系觉得这是我的观点。
对，伊丽丝和Lowhi的讲的非常棒啊！我觉得呢，首先要找到可以鼓励孩子的地方。我觉得我们一代都是从批评的环境下长大的，所以我们自然不自然的去对孩子的情况下呢，也是首先比较 critical， 去批评，去指责。这样的话，孩子这个 defensive 马上就竖起来了。所以，如果你是一个朋友，一个平等的方式，而且，我跟你说，孩子看那么多 social media， 他们可能可以教你很多东西呢。跟你教1-2点的东西的时候，你能从他那学到的东西，然后你再去跟他理论的时候，他就比较容易接受你了，因为他觉得你把他看的是平等的了。这是我的一些感悟啊，讲得非常棒。
谢谢各位的观点，我觉得是我现在也在学着就是表扬他，因为我们很容易就先看到缺点，没有看到优点我也是尽量的能先说出来好，然后就是能去表扬他，让他先那个心里边是觉得你接受他的这个观点，或者至少是有我觉得这个也确实是很重要。谢谢你们的回答。
对呀，就是哪怕是在职场上也一样，在家里也是一样，是吧？你说一句批评或者 critical 的话，你可能能不能找4句 encourage、inspire 鼓励的话去说，这样的话，他这个接受的程度会非常的高。包括我们说跟孩子讲话的时候，如果你把自己 lower down yourself， 跟孩子在一个平等上面说个话，跟你很从上到下讲这个话，哪怕是这个 body language 很不一样，产生的效果也是非常不同的。我知道我们今天时间是非常有限啊，非常棒。我们现在有2代出来对话，然后父母们也可以直接问问2代。我今天没有破那个 chat 里头的问题，是为什么呢？我是想我们1代给2代做些榜样，怎么样 be visible， 怎么样 be vocal。你自己打开 mic， 打开 video 来问问题，不然的话，我们真的孩子们上课也不开 video， 大人在职场上开会也不看 video， 所以我们永远就是 out of sight out of mind。 所以我们也慢慢要从这些方面来做起，我们要给孩子做 role model， 我们有很多方面要向我们的孩子学习，这样的话才能共同的成长。好吧，今天非常非常感谢Lowhi，我知道你是 extremely busy， 每一个 hour 都是非常 tough。Elise 非常棒，你们一个17岁的和一个26岁的对话非常棒啊！我们也欢迎朋友推荐 speakers， 我们要让更多的2代来跟1代来对话，好吧？谢谢大家，晚安 ，Have a great weekend。谢谢
大家
，Yeah， 非常棒，
谢谢。
Chilling in the summertime and somehow miss the sunset. Then it all